So let's go right into the jump.
Mhm.
Sam, hit me right off the top of your head. Is Roy Jones Jr. overrated? Yes or no? And tell me why.
He is not overrated. The guy he ended his career with 66 wins, 10 losses, 47 knockouts. The guy beat Jeff Lacey, beat
Right.
Trinidad, beat Bernard Hopkins, beat a James Toney James Toney was 44-0. He beat Omar Shika. He beat Tarver on that first fight of the three that they had. I
Right.
mean, I remember Julio Cesar Gonzalez was an undefeated fighter.
Right.
Beat
Right.
him. He beat John Ruiz. I think it was like
Mhm.
a light heavyweight fight. I
That was
don't
a
remember.
heavyweight fight. That
That
was a
was a
heavyweight fight.
heavyweight fight. I
Yeah.
mean, he beat. I mean, overrated? No. Roy Jones has been a hero to many other fighters that have come up today. He has been an inspiration to a lot of fighters. His style, only he could do it. You know
Hmm.
what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Overrated? I think he's far from overrated, bro. I think he was one of the best fighters we've had in our time.
So let me ask you, why is it? You and I did an episode of the top three most overrated boxers, and he was brought up a lot, along with Mike Tyson, amongst others. But Roy Jones Jr. was brought up a lot. And even before we started this podcast, I always heard that Roy Jones Jr. was overrated. So why do you think people get this feeling about him,
He,
considering he was
mhm.
almost undefeated in the 90s? I apologize. Go ahead.
Me, in my opinion, that the reason why people have said, "Oh, he's overrated," is because
Hmm.
they're judging him by his recent fights.
Hmm.
It's a lot of newbies, but the old
Right.
heads, they know that they knew that Roy Jones was a great fighter. I mean, this
Right.
guy was he's the one that, in my opinion, was one of the greatest. You can't hit what you can't see.
Right.
The way he just moved around the ring. I mean, he fought everybody, bro. He
Right.
fought everybody. And so I think that a lot of people that say that he's overrated are people that
Hmm.
just got into Roy Jones.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So people that are older, like us in our age, we've seen what he's done. He beat Jeff Lacey. Jeff
I was about
Lacey
to
was
say that. Yeah.
dude, he beat Jeff Lacey. He was considered like some type of knockout artist, whatever. Bam, bam, bam. He beat him. He beat Trinidad. He beat Omar Shika. I remember Omar Shika. And
Right.
I mean, dude, he's beat everybody. Once he got older, once it, the whole Tarver and, then the downfall from that, I think it was just, he was getting older. That's it. It could
Well,
happen
that's
to
actually where I
anybody.
wanted. That's actually where I want to go. I actually think Roy Jones Jr. is the exact case study of what they say about boxers.
Yeah.
Boxing and UFC are the only sports. Hey guys, Trey here. If you love today's controversial episode and you want to see our channel grow, please drop a like, subscribe, and also comment. Sam and I are always going back and forth with those commenters on our controversial topics and opinions, and we love it so much. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe, most importantly, so our channel can grow and we can give you guys the best content as possible. Sam and I were always uploading multiple videos a week, and we want to continue doing that, and we need your help. So go ahead and subscribe, guys. And most importantly, like I always say, don't forget to stick and move, baby. Where you literally age overnight from one fight to the next.
Yes.
We see a great boxer, doesn't matter who it is in their lineage. It could be Muhammad Ali, it could be Lennox Lewis, it could be Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. One day they seem invincible, and then literally like the next fight, it's like they're fighting with sandbags tied around their ankles. And he was that when I think that's actually where I guess the popular idea is coming, where he's overrated, because when he got knocked out, by Tarver in that rematch, because the part one was the controversial one. We've gotten comments that you and I should do an episode based on that.
We should. All right.
But you saw after that fight him just fall down into a vortex of losses. He slowed down, his style changed. And I kind of think that, like you're saying, like the new heads that are paying attention to boxing now, that just got into boxing within the past 5, 10, 15 years, are looking back at these old greats like Roy Jones. Because by the way, just to answer your question, I do not think he's overrated at all also. But I think they're looking back and they're seeing, wow, Roy Jones undefeated almost throughout the 90s, one of the greatest robberies in amateur boxing in the Seoul Olympics, right? And then all of a sudden he just falls off a cliff, loses to Tarver, loses to Glenn Johnson, and he just cannot seem to rebound. Loses to Tarver again, and Calzaghe, which, they're all the same age, more or less, but still. I honestly think that's where that narrative is coming from, where these new heads, where they dominate, they know how to narrate through social media, and it's taking that influence. So to answer the question, I do not think he's overrated. I just think that a new era of media and boxing has convoluted the idea of the greatness of what Roy Jones was. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that the new media or whatever, the new fans, they're like they're going, the last 10 years of boxing. They don't know that this guy was, he was today's Mayweather, or whatever, Canelo, whatever you want to say, but he was great, bro. Just to hit this guy was already a huge task for any fighter. Look what he did to James Toney. James Toney was 44-0. Yeah, 44-0, bro. And what he did to Hopkins, what he did to Cesar Gonzalez, John Ruiz. I can go on and on, but this guy was unbeatable, bro. He was unbeatable. And go ahead.
I want to say, I'm sorry, I apologize, but look, that 90s and early 2000s era, mid 90s to 2005-ish, around that time, was very weird in terms of boxers taking control of divisions. Like you said, Roy Jones will beat James Toney. But Roy Jones will beat Montel Griffin. Will actually get disqualified, then revenge that. Then Griffin would beat Toney, if I'm not mistaken. I think I might have that flipped upside down. And then Toney would go up and fight Evander Holyfield and beat Holyfield, make him throw in the flag. It was just a weird era in boxing where they were challenging each other, but it was neither. It kind of reminds me of the light heavyweight division today, where there's like two guys and everybody else is mediocre. At that time in the 90s, early 2000s, there was like maybe 3 or 4 great 168, 175 and up boxers, but there was just so many in between, but yet they were also good enough they were just talented. And I don't know if it was because Roy Jones's talent was bringing out the best out of these guys, but it just seems to me that this confusion of who's the next champion of that time, of that era, was very, I think that confuses the new modern media of the younger guys that are just getting into boxing when they determine who is overrated or who's underrated. I don't know.
I want to say something though.
Go for it.
I want to say something, and it might, we'll probably get a reaction for this, but I'm gonna stand on it. A prime Roy Jones Jr. would have beaten at 154. At 154, I think he would have beaten a prime Canelo.
Okay.
I think that a prime Roy Jones Jr. would defeat Canelo. A prime Roy Jones Jr. would have beaten Jermell Charlo.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
I think if we would have Roy Jones today at 28, 7 years old, a prime Roy Jones Jr., he would be the face of boxing right now.
But here's the one thing, and I
Go
agree
ahead.
with you. I think he would pepper and make Canelo
They can't hit him.
miss.
Yeah.
He couldn't hit him. But, considering his athleticism, you could say him and Evander Holyfield were the pinnacle of what boxers should look like.
Yes.
Of all time. Of all time.
Yes. He's one of, Holyfield's one of my greatest heavyweights. Yes, go ahead.
Absolutely. Here's the difference. I'm kind of, and this is tragic to me, I'm kind of disappointed in Roy Jones because although he had that great athleticism, I don't think he fully utilized it, especially later on in his career when he was already getting punched out. Here's what I'm trying to say. It kind of reminds me of Shaquille O'Neal a little bit. Okay. Shaquille O'Neal in basketball for about a 5-year stretch in the late 90s, 2000s, same era, coincidentally, was dominant. He didn't take care of himself. He fell off. The whole Kobe Bryant thing happened. And we never got the full scope of what Shaq could have been. We had a glimpse of it for a few years when they won those 3 titles in a row.
Like Roy Zion Jones today.
Okay, like Zion Williamson. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Put down the pizza, my man. I love pizza too, but put it down. But look, Roy Jones Jr., man, I think his athleticism, what we saw in the ring, especially in those mid to early 90s and later 90s, early 2000s, was phenomenal, but I think it could have been better. That's how underrated, I guess, in a weird way, I think he is.
I agree.
Think
underrated.
I think there was a lot of fights where he wanted to show off his athleticism, and it was great. It was a show. I remember him. I remember thinking, it's like, oh, wow, he's sponsored by Michael Jordan. That's amazing. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I just think that he could have given more of boxing to where he would be on everybody's Mount Rushmore of greatest boxers of all time if he didn't become a little bit of a sideshow in the ring and utilize that athleticism a little bit more. I know that's going to get a lot of hate, a lot of, you don't know what you're talking about. But when I watched every fight of him in the 90s, okay, and early 2000s. My last street fight that I was ever in was the day he got knocked out by Glenn Johnson.
Oh,
it was me and these 3 other guys. You should check out the other guy. But anyways,
yeah.
I remember I came home trying to make it to go watch the Glenn Johnson and Roy Jones Jr. fight because I was like, I hope Roy Jones bounces back after Tarver. I come in watching the fight. I have blood on my face. My knuckles are scraped up. And, dude, it's like he went from one day being probably one of the top 5, top 10 greatest boxers who ever lived to unrecognizable. I don't know. That's just my take. How underutilized, considering how athletic Roy Jones Jr. was, that he wasted his talent in a strange, askew way. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that the thing is, this is just my opinion. The thing is, I just think a lot of people didn't want to fight him.
Yeah.
To see his
he was
greatness.
The boxer.
He was just a very complicated fighter. The people didn't want to deal with it. What he's done, because I remember, I will not forget the whole talk about Omar Shika and Jeff Lacey and all them guys.
Yeah.
I remember all that. I remember that. And so when he beat these guys, I think that what you're trying to say about seeing more from Roy Jones, the greatness that, we didn't get to see it all. I think it's people just didn't want to fight him. People just didn't want to fight him. He had to go to other weights, just to get a match, to make it more competitive. Just to make it more competitive. But he is, I would even say he's underrated. I think he was underrated. And when people talk about legends, in my opinion, they got to bring up Roy Jones because that guy did what a lot of people couldn't do. The way he smoked James Toney and Bernard Hopkins, I mean, it was just like nothing. You know, his hooks, the way he would get in and out of punches and situations. I mean, the crowd, everybody loved him. The guy was awesome.
Do you think, and then we'll move on, do you think that this whole narrative of Roy Jones being overrated is influenced by the Mayweather generation, considering they fought almost the same era?
I think that it's influenced by the new casuals watching boxing. People that just don't know their history. This guy was amazing. He was one of the greatest ever step in the ring, in my opinion.
Right. And I think that's what's lost in here. I think, look, I'll admit, when he fought Tarver the second time, you know, when Tarver, when they're bringing him in the middle of the ring, and Tarver tells them, "You have any excuses tonight?"
I got a question. You got any excuses tonight, Roy? Let's not ask questions like that. Let's touch gloves and go to work. Tonight, Roy. Let's go to work.
I saw Roy Jones look like his soul was taken from him. He didn't have that attitude that we always saw, that quick flinch that we're used to seeing from Roy Jones Jr. It was gone after that rematch with Tarver. And I don't know if it was just years of him getting battered and just being all those, you know, being the cash cow at the time in the 90s and early 2000s, where it just caught up to him, and maybe he lost that fire a little bit, maybe for Tarver. But I don't know, man. I just kind of feel, to answer the question, that I think Mayweather fans, they tend to overlook what a couple of losses might mean. I think for a lot of it, Mayweather fans believe that if you're not undefeated, then you're just not great.
Yeah, that's what they did. Look what they've done to Spence. They threw him under the bus, bro. They threw him under the bus, and I'm still gonna root for Spence on the rematch when it happens at 154. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just think, you know, like Roy Jones Jr. is, to wrap up this conversation, I mean, he is a case study of how boxers from one fight to the next can go a complete 180, man. Be this amazing, shiny object of athleticism that we've never seen in the boxing ring before, to now being like unrecognizable.
Yeah,
I did not dude, when Roy Jones came into the ring, it was always exciting. He always had that attitude. He had that bob and weave in the ring, like that little smirk on his face, like, oh, we're gonna end the night early, or we're gonna have fun tonight. He always had that look, that attitude. And yeah, he went the distance with Tarver and made, I think a little bit was taken from him when people were saying that Tarver got robbed. And I think that Roy Jones, you know, he's an excellent commentator. I miss him on
yeah,
television.
he's awesome, man. He's awesome.
Yeah, I loved him, man. I loved him. And I just think that when he heard those chatterings that Tarver got robbed, I think that took a lot out of him. I think that was the first time in his career since that Seoul Olympic amateur fight that he had been questioned. He had been doubted, or at the very least, something was taken away from him that he felt like he earned. And then when that second fight happened, I just think that it was the perfect calamity of destruction, where Roy Jones' soul was taken. You look at that fight, look at when they face each other in the ring. Roy Jones looks like he's preoccupied.
Yeah.
And then Tarver knocks him out early, and the rest is history. Roy Jones was never the same ever again. So
the one that shocked me is when he got knocked out by Glenn Johnson.
Yeah. I thought that was gonna be a rebound fight.
Dude, I was completely shocked. That was the one where I said, okay, you know, all right, then that means it's over. Yeah,
I remember, because Glenn Johnson was what, this Jamaican journeyman.
Yeah.
Like he had
I
like
remember that, dude.
8 or 9 losses or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that, dude. I remember that fight. I was like, no way. Yeah.
But that was it. You know, when Tarver beat him, I remember thinking, okay, he just got his revenge. Roy Jones has been the champ forever and a day. He became heavyweight champ. And, you know, Tarver just, you know, it was a size thing too, man. And I thought Glenn Johnson was a good tune-up fight, which was acceptable back then. But no, man, it was Roy Jones wasn't the same anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that, man. You have any final words on that?
No, it's just well, actually I do. It's just people that have criticized Roy Jones as not being overrated need to watch his early fights, man. This guy dominated. He was if you're new to boxing, he was like, you know, bigger than Bud Crawford, bigger than Spence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
This
guy was huge.
With Canelo too, for sure.
Yeah. This guy was huge. He was the cash cow of boxing, man.
Yeah, if this was any, he kind of, in my opinion, I know we're going a little bit longer. He kind of picked up the slack for when Mike Tyson was rebuilding himself.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
He picked up that heat. You know, Mike Tyson was a cash cow. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And you could arguably say he kept boxing alive.
He did in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, the heavyweights weren't really that exciting. Lennox Lewis, you know, he's an all-time great, but at the time, because he was this British boxer, wasn't really given the credit. Evander Holyfield was inconsistent with Riddick Bowe and James Toney and Lennox Lewis, and then George Foreman coming into the mix, Michael Moore. It was a lot of like I said, confusion going around in that era, and Roy Jones kept the boat afloat. And I like what you said, save boxing.
Exactly.
So we'll leave it at that. I'll give you the last word. Any last parting shots you got?
Yeah, I just want to let the fans know that if there's something that, you know, a match or a fighter, a boxer they want us to talk about, where, you know, I'm down, man. You know, it could be UFC, boxing, whatever it is. You know, we can make an episode out of it. You know, and thanks for all the likes and the comments.
Yeah, if you guys have any ideas for top threes, like Tyrann on Titan gave us for this episode, go ahead and put them in the comments, guys. Make sure you like us, you subscribe to us, and just keep on leaving those comments, guys. And like always, don't forget to stick and move, baby.
I am the greatest. I wish I was 50 years younger and I